Hi everybody, and welcome back to our 8th episode of Lead Strong. I'm joined today by my wonderful co-host Stephanie Hopper, and we have two fantastic guests who will introduce themselves shortly. Steph and I are delighted to be back. We've had a slight hiatus, so we've both been enjoying a bit of leave, so we're very excited to be back doing this broadcast today. So a little bit about Catfinity. Catfinity is a 16-year-old company specialising in the assessment and development of strengths across multiple levels within an organisation and globally. Steph and I also work on Altitude, which is our leadership assessment and development proposition, specialising in the support of identifying and developing leaders, again, globally. So really excited to be doing this series. I will hand over to Steph to introduce herself and our two fantastic guests. Over to you, Steph.
Great, thanks, Celine. You'll all notice she's got a better tan than me. She made it out the country and I didn't on my holiday. But there you go. We won't talk about me Googling things to do in Cornwall with children when it's raining. Anyway, I'm Steph Hopper. I head up development solutions at Catfinity, so work on the leadership development, early careers development and managers development programs. And as Celine said, we've got two fantastic guests. I'm delighted that they're able to join us today. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and maybe tell us a little bit about why they're passionate about the subject of leadership. So starting with David. David, perhaps you'd tell us a bit about yourself and your passion around leadership.
Certainly. Thanks, Steph. Welcome to everyone. My name is David Wood, Global Head of Learning and Development at Clyde & Co. Just a bit about Clyde & Co for people who don't know. We're 4,500 strong. 420 partners, growing all the time, which means our challenge is to provide personal, professional, career development for all of those people, all quite very different disciplines. Why passionate about leadership? It sounds very corny, but to make a difference, to know that you could be instrumental in changing or evolving someone's career as a result of something that you've done or something that you initiated along the way. And that's, I think that's the pleasure that we all get from being involved in leadership.
Such a good point, David. I still feel a sense of, slight accomplishment when I look at people who worked for me in my first job like 20 years ago and what they're doing today. So I get where you're coming from there. Mary, over to you. A little intro. Tell us why you're passionate about leadership.
Sure. Great. Thank you very much for inviting me today. So Mary Kelleher, I'm a chartered occupational psychologist. I've been working in the field of assessment for selection and development and coaching for over 30 years now. So both inside organisations and as a consultant. So that's my raison d'etre, I suppose. And the reason I'm passionate about leadership is because I think leaders make such an important difference to people's working lives and to the businesses, obviously, that they work in. That's, it goes without saying that they are hugely important in the financial and, general success of an organisation or a business. But it's the impact they have on the people who work for them, I think, which is so important. And that's why I'm really motivated to help people become more self-aware and deal with all their rough edges and just be more considerate of the people who they lead and manage and empower them to develop. So that's my take on the importance of leadership.
Thanks, Mary. Lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, David. My favourite clients and one of my favourite colleagues to work with. So really, really looking forward to the conversation. So what we're talking about today is around potential. So the concept of potential, which is a name and a concept that I think gets bandied around quite a lot, doesn't it? And I think in the world of kind of talent and succession planning, it's a well-used word, but I think we're often still quite grappling in terms of knowing what does it mean and what do we do about it and what do we do with it. So really delighted we've got this space to kind of thrash that out a little bit. I was, as always, doing a bit of research in preparation for this session today, and came across some research published as part of the Global Leadership Forecast last year, and they were talking around a bit of research they'd done, which had found that CEOs had deemed that leaders being able to identify and develop leadership kind of potential in their people, they were deeming that the number one critical skill of leaders. That's the most important thing that a leader needs to be able to do, is to be able to see and spot leadership potential in others. But that the same CEOs, only 14% felt that actually they had the leadership pipeline in place that was needed in order to execute the business strategy that they had in place. Which is a pretty frightening statistic. You know, that's kind of less than a fifth of CEOs feeling like they have that. So it's clearly a very pertinent kind of issue, and we know that organizations are going through fundamental, you know, really huge change at the moment, you know, just generally, but also especially post-pandemic. And I've always heard my clients talk a lot around potential, but it feels like it's coming up kind of more than ever. So I thought it may be useful to start the conversation with looking at what potential means. I've been really cheeky and I've kind of put two questions in one, so forgive me, but what I'm interested in your thoughts on, David and Mary, is really, you know, what is the difference between potential and performance? Because they are very different things, but we also know that they're often confounded. And so I'm interested in your views of what's the danger of doing that. You know, what's the risks attached in interpreting performance and potential to mean the same thing. So if I may, I'll mix it up slightly. I'll come to you, Mary, first for your views on that, please. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I think we've probably all come across in our working lives individuals who have been really good contributors at their maybe technical specialism, a subject matter expert or whatever, and then they're considered to be such good performers, they get promoted, and they are in a role which is just outside of either their spheres of capability, that they haven't developed a broader management skill set, or it was beyond their aspiration even. So I think you can have somebody who's really contributing well in a particular role, and in their performance appraisals, you might look back and they've got really good sound performance ratings, but that doesn't necessarily mean their aspirations are to move higher, or that they have the skill set to do new and different things at a more senior level. So, you know, it's a combination, I think, of assessing their aspiration, their capability currently, but also looking forward and saying, what is it that they might be going up to, and how different are the skills required at that level? And that's like the most basic thing that you have to do, I think. Also see how an organisation is changing and what the new skill sets might be, you know, as the organisation and its purpose and strategy changes.
I think the aspiration piece is really interesting, isn't it? Because especially with all the work that we're seeing at the moment around inclusivity and inclusive leadership, and I think more than ever we have a need to acknowledge that not everyone has that aspiration to progress vertically. And I think historically that has been viewed as being, you know, a less celebrated or a kind of worse option or path to take. But actually, there's real value, isn't there, from people taking multiple career paths and multiple journeys, and it's okay, and we need to celebrate that not everyone is like us, you know, not everyone's in our image that wants to, you know. So I think it feels timely to be really acknowledging an individual aspiration.
Yeah, I think it's important, Celine, because it's an important point. A lot of people, we may recognize that potential, but this may not be the right place to fulfill that potential. And do you know what? If we help them to move on, for me, that is all right. That is still part of helping and supporting them grow and develop as an individual. But we've got to be realistic. Sometimes people's potential cannot be filled in that particular organization. We hope to promote and grow people internally, but it's not always possible.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And for you, David, going back to the kind of danger of confounding performance and potential, I mean, what do you see as being the ramifications of that?
I think Mary made reference to the fact that we base a lot of our skill set around technical expertise.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've all fallen into this trap of thinking they're great lawyers, they're great technically, they're good at selling, therefore they're going to make fantastic partners. And the thing is, we're measuring them against one set of criteria, but actually a partner is a totally different set of criteria. And we kind of merge the two together. We automatically assume one's going to be good at the other. And I can't think of a better example than, you know, you want to promote someone to sales manager. So what do? You promote your best salesperson, and all you do is take your best salesperson out, reduce your figures and actually put them in a role where the skill set and the skills and the behaviors you need is completely different. And that's our challenge inside our firm, where we're trying to create similar skills, similar behaviors at a junior level, which we can then take through all the way through to partner. But it's a challenge because it sometimes gets in the way of being kind of discerning around what is their potential in relation to what are we seeing now. So sometimes that difference between potential and performance is a timeline. So for me, performance is it's happening now. I can see it, and I've seen it in the past. Whereas potential, I haven't yet seen it, or they may not have the opportunity, and that's that leap of faith. But we've got to try and, as a law firm, do our due diligence and minimize that leap of faith going horribly wrong.
Yeah, it's I love the sales manager analogy, because I think there is this assumption that if you're good at something, that you're going to be able to help other people to be good at it. And ironically, sometimes the opposite is the case. It's almost like the person who could be really empowering to a sales team is probably the less self-driven or the less limelight-driven kind of individual who is very happy, which maybe isn't the stereotypical profile of a successful salesperson. So it's dangerous territory, isn't it, to make that assumption?
Yeah, I think so. In addition, for us, as you move up that career roadmap, what was important when you started out is no longer important as you move up. I say no longer important, so technical expertise, if you're a junior lawyer, is of paramount importance. That will never go away if you're a partner, but you may have other people in your team, dare you admit, who may be technically stronger than you are. But as you move up the career ladder, other things become more important. The ability to build relationships, the ability to sell, the ability to look after your clients, they become more important. But the danger is we measure people on what they've done then, as opposed to what we need in the future.
Absolutely. And Mary, is there because for me, performance is and maybe not being a high performer is one of the things on which someone can be overlooked in terms of their potential. And I'm just interested, and I know this is coming sideways, so appreciate the putting you on your feet here, but putting you on the spot. But is there anything else that you think could make someone be overlooked? We hear about people who have these hidden kind of pots of gold of potential that we just wouldn't find if we didn't look very hard. And I just wondered if there's anything else that you've seen in your career of working with individuals, what else can kind of make that remain hidden?
Yeah, well, I think the most obvious thing is the people who quietly get on with their jobs and don't make a lot of noise and don't necessarily speak up, but think quite deeply. Maybe in a meeting, they're thinking, they're listening, they're observing, and then they come up with something or an idea or a solution. But often they're not the noisiest, and they don't attract the most attention. So often, you as a manager, you have to really look deeper and then encourage those people to speak up and show, be a bit more visible. because whatever we say, visibility is quite important. I think is being confident enough to show what you.
And I think, Mary, also managers and leaders need to be confident enough to have the career conversations to understand people's ambitions as well. The biggest thing I've noticed in organisations is people shy away from those conversations, mainly because we think we've got to have the answers. But actually, most people are grateful if we create a space for the unknown to be explored. And, we all don't know the answers, do we? Like, no one really knows the answers on that, but we kind of make that space where they can explore it. I think that's so critical and is often forgotten.
I totally agree, Stephanie. And I think over my career, I think that's the thing I've realised, that in both HR people and line managers need to have the confidence to just sit and talk to people about how it's going, how they're feeling. Performance management systems can be a bit rigid, and obviously managers have more frequent conversations with people and have the confidence to just sort of chew things over with them, and also see what's going on at their life stage. So women having children to dip in and out. Line managers have to account for all of those different things and be prepared to just sort of be more open, as you said, and confident about having conversations about aspiration and so on.
I agree. Because if I look over my career, the things I remember, the people that took the time with me, were patient with me, and we didn't call it a career conversation. We probably labeled it, just want to have a chat, and it was just to have someone to listen to us and someone to bounce ideas off each other. But actually we remember those because for me that was a leadership moment. That was where they cared and they took time in me, and that's why I agree with Mary. Sometimes we get too wrapped up in the formal processes. Very often it's the informal stuff that happens in between that for me is what good leadership looks like and helps people move up that career ladder.
So true. It's so true. Okay, so just building on that a little bit, I'm wondering what ways you think organisations can best assess for and develop upon potential to secure, a good leadership pipeline. What have you seen work well, David?
I think it's important to have a framework. And what I mean by a framework is, what does good look like? So, I always remember the words of Stephen Covey, always start with the end in mind. So from a leadership perspective, what are we looking for? What does that perfect partner, leader look like? And we have to be very open and transparent about that so people can see, any development they go on, there's a clear line of sight between where they are and what they may well be aspiring to. So have a very clear model. In line with that, I also think for us, it's been very important to have a competency framework. And that highlights the knowledge, the skills, and the behaviours we expect of all of our lawyers at every single stage in their career. So that helps them assess their own performance, for us to assess their performance, but it also helps them with, doing some things at the next level up. That helps us to identify what that potential actually is. So, we'd use in our talent process, we use the 9-box model. Rightly or wrongly, some people love it, some people don't. I'm not bothered about what the model is. The fact is, we have those regular conversations to talk about what are we doing to help and support that individual now, but also in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mary, what about yourself? What have you seen work well?
Well, I think organisations that have some stepping stones built into their people's career timelines, and obviously they need to assess the potential for future roles, so they need to know what those kind of future skill sets are going to be, and that might include looking at future strategy as well. I know that's quite a big task and difficult when we're in VUCA world, but being prepared to think about what are we going to need in our future high potential people who are going to deliver against that strategy. Organisations sometimes have like management training programs, future management program, advanced manager program, and I've been involved in assessing people and their readiness to go onto those programs, and that I think that's another feature Not only are they performing well currently, but have they got that potential skill set of ability, social skills, and that's a very big kit bag, as we know, emotional intelligence, etc. But also the drive and the will to apply themselves to learn and implement new learning and take on more responsibility. Because some people want the promotion, but they don't necessarily want the hard work. And I think organisations need to allow subject matter experts, I think, to progress and not have to go into management roles that they're just not suited to. But organisations over my career have always struggled with that twin track career path.
Mary, something that I saw happen, which was really interesting, was I used to work with a lot of technology businesses, but I worked in a big technology department at one stage, and we had that problem. All these experts who didn't really want to be managers or leaders, but needed to progress their career. And actually the CTO there, I thought, was really mindful about this, and he was determined to create a technical career path. So we had different stages that you could work through without needing to lead or manage, but you were using technical leadership. So the top of that was a chief architect who was like the brains of technology. Now, they did always reach a crossroads. So I was coaching in that department, and I often had to coach the chief architects because they'd reached that point of, we've gone through all those things, and now I'm at that crossroads, and I've either got to just take the leap of faith or I've got to stay here, because you could only go so far. But I thought it was a really good way of hanging on and retaining his talent at a time when, he could have lost a hell of a lot of people because simply their ambitions maybe weren't aligned otherwise with what we were looking for. So
Stephanie, just to turn the tables and build on what Mary said, I totally agree with the point around, this is not just what the firm will provide for you. I think a lot of this is around, are you kind of self-directed? Do you take responsibility for your own learning? So if we're asking, what is the differentiator, sometimes in terms of performance or potential, for me is who takes their career by the scruff of the neck? Are they coachable? Can we develop these people? Are they hungry for more? That for me counts for a huge amount. So it's not just what we will do and create for them. It's, what do the employees want to do to push and promote their career as well?
So true. It's so true. It's that kind of growth mindset, isn't it? And learning agility that, you look for people to apply to their situations. Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting.
I think this has been really important time, actually. I don't know whether you, Celine and Stephanie, have come across this, but in the clients I'm working with at the moment, they're talking about flight risks. The fact that, given what David's just said, people have also got to try and retain their talent because the market seems to be just blowing wide open.
I think there's that, and I think I absolutely am seeing that, Mary. And I think what's one of the effects of the pandemic, I think, is that a lot of people are having this "am I doing what I want to be doing" moment. Am I in a role, or am I in an industry, am I in an organization, am I in a role that speaks to me? So I feel like we are seeing authenticity be celebrated in a way that it's never been celebrated before. And so I think that CTO that you mentioned, Steph, was really onto something, because I think other CTOs at that time may have been just pushing individuals to go into roles that had the management or the leadership, because that was the only option available to them. Well, we know if you're in a role that's not playing to your strengths, you're not going to be very happy, you're not going to be high performing. So I think the strengths-based philosophy is really aligned to this, I think. And as I say, I think there is this piece around inclusivity and celebrating us in all our different forms and having the right roles and right trajectories for us as individuals is really powerful.
Yeah, I think this is forcing us as well in our industry to think about different roadmaps, different careers for people. So I think traditionally in law firms it's fairly linear. I start as a trainee and I want to get to partner, although we're seeing more and more people say, do you know what, I've looked at that and I don't really want that kind of role. That's not for me. And equally, that's all right. But what it's doing, it's kind of acting as a catalyst for us to create and look at other career options where we can retain really talented people inside the business.
That's really wonderful, isn't it, David? And I think especially in law, and we see this in professional services generally, or indeed any partnership formation, that being a partner for a very, very long time has been absolutely the pinnacle of your career. It's, as you say, it's the thing that you strive for when you finish law school, so and I think it's interesting, this phenomena of looking and thinking it's not for me, because we know work-life balance and balance generally is much more of an issue for emerging leaders coming through. But I think also, and I work with a lot of partners in the law firm and professional services, I think even people, existing partners, they're on that journey as well. More and more partners, and Mary and David, you'll hear this, are saying, I'm hearing them say, I don't really want my next 10 years of my career to look like the last 10 years that I've had. And I think this is pandemic driven. I've seen my family a lot more the last year. Do I want to just go back to 200 flights a year, not seeing it? People don't want to be doing that. So I think it's a lot of change at foot. Generally. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for that discussion. Just to summarise, it's been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. A very gritty issue to dissect, this potential versus performance. I think some of the things that have really resonated for me around our conversation, just before I come to each of you for your final pearls of wisdom. One is this ongoing danger of confounding performance and potential. Performance and potential are different things, and there is a lot of danger inherent in thinking that the individual who is high performing in role A is going to be the high performer in role B, when actually you're changing 80% of the role description that they're doing. The second really strong theme has been around inclusivity. I don't think we've done any Lee Strong session where inclusivity hasn't come up, have we, Steph? But it's come up again today, rightly so. Because I think there is this trend towards the need to be more inclusive, and in this context, being inclusive is being accepting and celebrating the differences in all of us around the kind of career trajectories that we want and the aspirations that we each have, and the responsibility, I think, that organisations and line managers have to align those opportunities that are there to really play into those very individual aspirations. And I think the third thing, which has really come through for me, is around conversations and just this being an ongoing dialogue between the individual, their line manager, other stakeholders, and the organisation generally, and that it's an open, honest, two-way conversation around career paths and career plans, rather than something that is contained within a policy or a process. If nothing else, it's just not agile enough, is it, to acknowledge how quickly people are changing. So really wonderful discussion. I'll come to you first, Mary, just for your final reflections on what we have discussed.
Sure. Thank you. So I think the main thing I think about this assessment of potential is that people have got to use some rigorous assessment tools as well as looking at performance. So good performance is the baseline, and then measuring for potential has got to happen and be overlaid on top of that. So you're looking for, their ability, their learning agility. You're looking for their social skills, their influencing skills, their relationship skills, and not only that, the will and the motivation and the drive to progress. So those are the things I think people have got to be looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary. David, any final thoughts from you?
Thanks, Lee. Very, very similar to Mary. I think it's absolutely crucial for people in the business to understand the difference between performance and potential. And I think if you get that really good understanding across your key decision makers, you're well on the way to selecting the right people for the right role and building your leadership pipeline.
Wonderful, thank you. And Steph?
Yeah, I just say don't be scared to celebrate rocks. Basically, we need rocks who keep everyone going and who can develop their roles like sideways and outwards and move with the business, but they don't necessarily want to move upwards. And that's cool, because actually none of us as leaders want to manage 12 high potentials who all want to be CEO. That's quite hard work. We can't possibly create those roles for all of them. And actually, I think sometimes we focus so much attention on the top 10%. There's this bank in the middle who keep the business going, keep things ticking over, motivate their teams, and we need to celebrate those rocks much more than we do already.
I love it.
Yep.
I feel like we need a t-shirt with that on, Steph. Celebrate the rock.
I'll see what I can do for next time.
Fly off the shelves. So fly off the shelves. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone again in 2 weeks' time, where we're looking at the issue of the opportunity of talent management generally within an organisation. So David, Mary, wonderful to have you with us. Steph, pleasure as always. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, David.
Thank
Bye.
you.